Hi, Kelly. Welcome to What's Your Next podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a writer of spooky books, and this is my adult debut, just came out. It's called A Day with Dad. Really excited. It's about a children's librarian who falls in love with the Grim Reaper. So my backlist has been YA, and so I'm really excited for this to be my adult debut, my foray into adult fiction.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I love talking to white authors because you wrote YA during the time that I was reading YA. I'm in my 40s and I was reading YA in the 2010s and all the way till 2018. I think that's the year that I grew up to moved out to adult. And so I love talking to YA authors who are like now trying adult debuts and they're doing their elements of YA are still there, but they're having fun experimenting in new genres or new ways to do this. And so A Date with Death is like a paranormal, but it's still a rom-com, it's still romance. There are elements that you just like you see the original elements for Nevermore trilogy, but you get to experiment a little bit more. What was the process for you to grown up to critical grown up into the age group that you're writing for? Because obviously why you tend to have a lot of coming of age
Mhm.
context, but an adult you may have already problems, you may not have parental relationship, you may have actually you're still having the existential crisis, but it feels much more noticeable. Or it's like, what am I doing with my life? Kind of deal. So talk to us about that transition.
It was so much fun to go into the romantic leads, the two main characters who'd both been living for a while, grim for quite a while.
Yes.
And just they have a different set of problems. And I didn't have the reins of having to deal with parents and school and things like that. So these are people in their normal lives. And it was just nice to give them adult problems to go with it. YA, they're often young people dealing with adult problems, but it was just a little different. I could shift it in and I could go a little darker. I know it's rom-com, but I do go a little darker and a lot spicier.
And honestly, you can have fun with professions. You can be like a librarian, you can be like a Green Reaper, but you don't have to. I think in just NYA, you have in school, you have to figure out your niche. And so, in some ways, it's fun to dive deep into what do you actually do? Like, how to spend your time. It's a little bit different than if you're a kid, you're like your parents, you have to go to school. It's a pretty commonality aspect of it. So, yeah, I think that's a fun thing. The world's your oyster. You can pick a profession and have fun with it.
And one of the most fun things about the romance was in YA, romance, it's like your first love. The teens
Yes.
are experiencing love for the first time. But with Helena, I was able to write a character who had been through some heartbreaks and kissed some
Yes.
frogs. And that was really fun to weave that in.
Yes. Baggage. We
Yeah.
love a good baggage.
Yes, absolutely.
We love a good trauma. We love a good
Yes.
breakup. We love trying different things. And who knew it's the unexpected love interest is a Grey Reaper. So So talk to us about like working with the paranormal elements that are Green Reaper, which is not it's not as a think about like some major world building. There's like some world building here. And then incorporating as a male main character, making believable to as a romantic partner for Helena.
Yeah, he's so iconic. And I wanted to dip my toes into the adult arena. And I was talking with my agent, and she suggested I try my hand in adult cozy romance. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And my nephew, who is in college, physics major, came over and I'm like, Ethan, what do you think? And he's, you ever thought about the Grim Reaper? And lightning bolt went off. And I'm like, who am I going to pair him with? So he's so iconic that I just thought, that's it. That's so me. And so I thought, well, I'm going to put him with the most sunshiny person I can think of. And so I picked a children's librarian. And it was just so fun to just smush them together in that very first scene and see what happened. And so
Yeah.
that's how I got started and where A Date with Death evolved from. So I dedicated the book to Ethan, my nephew.
Oh my god, I love this. And honestly, cozy romance, I think it's when we are. I think when you were writing probably YA in the 2010s, there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of me against the world, trying to overcome high stakes. And I think in some ways the world has gone so we've gone through so many unprecedented events and we're just looking for vibes. We're looking for
Yes.
cozy. We're looking for we want healthy relationships. We don't want the toxic space and stuff. Which actually gives you like it's an opposite. It's a place where it's like a little bomb of like love and cozy and everything's gonna work out because it's a romance. So we know it's gonna be happily ever after. But the journey doesn't have to be so like the angst and the toxicity.
Because I'm coming from paranormal romance, but it was so fun to stay in the realm of paranormal romance, but sort of remove that element of the world is going to end. I still have it a little bit with the death stakes surrounding Helena, but I got to lean into comedy and more so than horror. Like I got my start writing comedy. So it was a little bit like returning home. I just
Yeah.
hadn't published. I did a lot of comedy when I was younger and then not so much in books until this one. So I just went crazy with my humor and I had a blast.
Yes. Oh, so talk to like comedy journey. What type of comedy did you practice? Improv, stand
I
up,
did.
just talk to us about comedy because I feel like that's a skill that people don't to take for granted. They're like, oh, it's just I'm funny with my friends, and you're like, actually, no, we're just like people think of. Everyone should have a podcast, and we're very interesting. I was like, no, maybe you need to build the skill. You need to build the practice.
A lot of it comes from my family. I grew up with three brothers. And so my dad has a very, very dry, dark sense of humor, jaded. And my mom is very silly and madcap. So I got best of both worlds there. And then if you're the only girl with three brothers, you've got to get some cutthroat one liner.
Yes.
Working in high school, I actually was in playwriting and I wrote full, like, short plays and we produced them. So I wrote like Bigfoot in the Park, Aunt Lulu Takes Out the Trash. These were just like small comedies and they were so fun. I got to cast my friends and direct it. And so it was so fun to do that in that setting. And then I did that also in undergrad because I majored in theater in undergrad and I did short plays in undergrad too. And they were all comedies. So it was so fun to do that. And there's a lot of comedy involving Helena being a children's librarian. I worked in children's services at the library.
Oh my gosh.
And the story time was so funny. And just these moments would happen, these crazy things would happen. And they had me drive the bookmobile. And it was the exact bookmobile that shows up in A Date with Death.
Yes.
And I had a love-hate relationship with that bookmobile because I loved story time and I loved seeing the kids get on and get the books. I hated driving it so much. It was like the steering wheel was the size of a small hula hoop. It made me so nervous. They had me take it on the expressway. It was terrible. But oh God. So I worked through my bookmobile in it.
Yes.
So it was
Yes.
really fun. So a lot of comedy in the library, a lot of comedy with the kids and doing story time. Just the craziest things would happen, and they would say the craziest things. So that was fun, and I put a lot of that into Helena, who just loves working with kids and
Yeah.
never loses her sense of whimsy.
Yes, I love this as a testament for lived experience. I think people take it for granted, but like you gonna have to live, you gotta try a bunch of different jobs and have all these stories that you can actually pull from your story bank and anecdotes and like funny aspects that you can then pull it in and maybe take it up a notch or take it up and down or be like, it's actually stranger to fiction. It's even worse than what I wrote. I love this. I love the fact like you got through the angst of that bookmobile. Like you work through your trauma
I
and you
did. He's
actually
a villain in my life, and so I made it a villain in the book.
yes. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh,
Okay, Kelly. So talk to us about what can we expect in the next few years from you? Are you still gonna try to do some YA or you're like settling trying to experiment with adult space?
Oh, I have another YA coming out. So it'll be out next year. I'm super excited about it. It's called A Promise to Hades. And so it is I know it's so exciting. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling, but I'm also mixing up the Hades and Persephone retelling by mixing in Orpheus and Eurydice. So it's kind of a mashup of those two myths. And it's set in a made up world that has a Roman inspiration. I was inspired by the Vestal Virgins. So they inspired the priestess system that I have. and Hades is there, and there's an Orpheus character there, and it's a lot of fun. I took it and mixed it all around, and I love it.
Oh my gosh. So, what was the research look like for you when looking at this? Was something that you have been exploring Greek mythology, Roman Empire, old and ancient history, or was it something I wanted to learn more about this particular thing and how I can actually merge it into this world? I'm just
Uh,
curious with Greek mythology and the rabbit hole. You know how men said they explore the Roman Empire is the one thing that they think about.
yeah,
So, how much is the Roman Empire? What do you?
I just love mythology just all around.
Yeah.
I took a mythology course in undergrad, and like I spent the whole time being absolutely fascinated. And it's storytelling at its finest. It's just old and mythical and ancient, and they just knew what they were doing with the story of heroes. And then I did a job for a educational company where I was writing small pieces for children for historical pieces and fiction based in historical worlds. And I did a lot of research on the Vestal Virgins in ancient Rome for that. And so the research was done up front. So when I came to Hades and Persephone, it came out of that research I had done for that project. And my editor actually requested, because my YA with Viking has been retellings. And so we were discussing where we wanted to go next. And so we wanted to do Romantasy and Hades and Persephone.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love a good Hades and Persephone retelling. I just love it. I love how authors take their unique sense of storytelling and take these characters that are so well known and actually bring them to different worlds and to actually see the characteristics and see the author's kind of DNA imprinted in them.
Oh, I
That
love retellings. It's Chuck Wendig in his book, Damn Fine Story. He says that there's no original stories, but the one thing that we always bring to our stories that is original is the author.
yeah.
So I love that. And I love coming to the project with that lens on and just taking it and putting in elements that are very me into Hades and Persephone and mixing it all around and making it dark and light.
Yes, I love it. And again, it's another testament, lived experience
Yeah.
enough. It doesn't have to be blank stage. You have lived experience, you have done the research, you have done other projects, experiments, and stuff that allow you to be able to put this story together. That is when we think about it, it's like when I talk to a lot of like authors, and a lot of times they're like, at the story, I have this idea in Germany, but a lot of it's like author's DNA of lived experience of I worked in this place, or I have experience, or I know someone, or someone lived experience, or I was a caretaker, or I have this idea. And so it's like putting it all together. That's what makes an author DNA, like the author's imprint so well. Is like they bring this knowledge that they may share or they may not share with us, but we know that they understand the subject matter.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. And at the time, I really hated the bookmobile.
Yeah.
A passion. And now I'm like, I am so glad I did
Yeah.
the bookmobile.
Because you know what? It brings the stakes up. That's the
Yes.
thing. You need the high stakes. It's like an
Yes.
inciting incident.
I might not have ever thought about utilizing it as a tool in the story. If it hadn't been so scary for me, I couldn't have made it so scary for them.
Yes, that's what it comes down to it. It's like looking at your experience, like, oh, this is an inciting incident. This is what take it to the next level. This is what it's gonna do it. So I love this so, so much. So Kelly, let's talk about some books. What type of books do you read? Do you read romance? Do you read thrillers, horror, fantasy, romantasy? There's the world's your oyster.
I read everything. I read so much. I've been looking at rom-coms lately
Yeah.
since that's the avenue I'm in. And I love young adult. I love children's literature. I love nonfiction. I do a lot of craft reading because I teach creative writing too. So I just read across the board in all genres. Love it all. Give it all to me. I have no shelf, none.
Oh my gosh. First, I want to talk about creative writing, teaching creative writing. What kind of like what would you tell an author listening to this and who is trying to experiment or like I maybe not publish, maybe they think they're aspiring authors, but everyone's an author, everyone's a writer. If you're writing, you're a writer and stuff. What would you give like that piece of advice to?
I have two pieces of advice that I would love to go back and give my early writer self. And I always give this to my students. And the first one is very important. It may not be glamorous, but your process is your process. And one of the big things you need to learn as a writer is what your specific individual process is. The sooner you figure out your process, the easier it gets. And don't let anybody talk you out of your process or tell you, like, if you don't outline, you don't outline. If you, I'm a planner, so I do plotting and outline. I do, and every book is different. Your process for every book is different because the sequel or the follow up to A Date with Death, I completely outlined that. So that was outside of my usual process. So, in a nutshell, the advice is to learn your process because once you know it, you're going to be able to produce more quickly and have that confidence. And then you can also break out of your process. And so the second part is structure, learn structure, because I struggled with structure early on, and that's not glamorous either. However, once you learn structure, then you can start to break the rules. The more rules you learn, the easier they are to break them. It's harder to start out breaking rules. If you learn them and you know you're breaking a rule, it's easier to break.
Yes, I appreciate it. I think one of the things there's a lot of times it's giving the advice of there's one way to do it. There's a plotter, there's a pantser, there's the only way to do it. And the reality is that for every book is different, every experience is different, every lifetime is experience that you're
Absolutely.
doing it. And at the same time, understanding the basics, understanding what you can actually do and how you can excite. It's like someone says, I want to write romance, but I don't want to have a happily ever after. I was like, well, that's a genre. Understand the genre, understanding where does it market, understanding how you can play around with that specific
Mhm.
thing that the reader can read them, can understand it, can buy the book. And
Right.
so I think I love the idea of like understanding your process, understanding what works for you, whether it's the time of the day that you write, how many days you write, or like specific things that work for you, whether you need noise, no noise, you need plants, you need a blank space, you need a to-do list, you need a task list, you need time to research. It's understanding what works for your own DNA. I keep saying the DNA, but like you figure out like what's your magic formula for you. And then understanding that you have to be flexible because it's not always the same.
Actually, you're not just writing a book, you're cultivating yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to figure out your prism, you're trying to figure out how does the light shine through you. And the quicker you sort of learn that, then it's easier. Jumping into a new book is like jumping into a really cold pool.
Yeah.
So but if you know how to swim, if you know your laps, if you know how you do your laps, you know what it takes to get results for yourself. And I
Yeah.
have learned through teaching that looks different for on a person to person, student to student basis, writer to writer. It really is very individual. So I think finding your individual method and program will help you.
Yes. Oh, I appreciate these tips because I know we do have authors, we do have writers who want to hear about how to write a book. A lot of times we talk about this is the way you can go, but sometimes like actually you just have to do it. At the end of the day, you just have to write.
Yeah. The only way of learning it is to do it.
Yeah, like you can't think about it. You just need to just sit down and write it and experience the process and maybe write a few dots. Like, no, things are never going to see the light of air. They and allow yourself just to use that for the process. Because I hate to say this, but writing is not just writing itself and just spending the day writing and then being billionaire. It's not may not be the right. It's a creative endeavor, and so you have to understand your process and now understand like what does it mean to be in the same like different places or what in the stages where you are, whether you're traditional published, you may have to do business, you may have to do
Right.
public speaking, you may need to sell the book. And so there's different aspects of writing that are not writing, but just to start writing.
That's the third thing I tell my students is that not only are you a writer, it's hard to take off the artist hat, put on the business person's hat because you're writing a product, but you also have to position that product in a way that it can be sold, depending on your publishing goals or your writing goals.
Yeah.
But like you had said earlier, like if it doesn't have a happily ever after, it's not a romance. So you're writing the book and that's the piece of art. And then the marketing aspect is knowing if it doesn't have a happily ever after, it doesn't mean it's not a love story, but it does mean it's not going to be marketed as romance. So that's what I mean by taking off one hat and putting on the other and being able to look at the piece as a product.
And a good segue is to read a lot, to read widely, to try different places, different ideas.
Absolutely.
So I think obviously we gotta talk some book recommendations. What can readers pick up? Not just readers or writers, like any person who's looking for recommendations, just try out. I think it's the big part of it. You just have to read. Oh.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of my favorite books on, it's actually an audiobook on craft, is how to write and sell best-selling fiction. That I might have jumbled that title a
Yeah.
little bit, but it's by James Scott Bell, and he's amazing. Everything he does is really good. So if anybody's looking for a really good program, it's an Audible exclusive because it's an audio program. But his other information, he gives the same information in his books on you can find them. There's like superstructure and write your novel from the middle. So the information is there, but he's really good. So if you're looking for craft recommendations, that's a really good one.
Oh my gosh, I love this. All right, let's talk some fiction. I think you have some fiction recommendations. Talk to us. So what should listeners pick up after a date with that? What?
There's so much going on that I love. One book that I so loved, and was one of the reasons I wanted to jump into rom-com because I loved it so much, was My Roommate is a Vampire.
Oh my
I
god,
just
so
love
fun.
it so hard. I listened to the audio too. It was so cute. I loved it. Frederick like Cassie just had me cracking up. His little notes to her and like her notes back. I loved it. That one's a blast. My TBR is crazy. I love Lana Ferguson. So her rom-coms are a lot of fun. I read Under Lock and Key. So that one was really cute.
Oh my god, that's a big good one.
That's one's that the Loch Ness Monster
Yeah.
romance.
Yes. It's like one of those.
And so I love monster romance. Give me all the
Yeah.
monster romance. Well, those are really good. And I love Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Anything by Holly Black.
So good.
Oh my gosh. Talk about like enemies to lovers. And like it was such to the, I don't think this is a spoiler. It was such to the point that when like you've got Jude and Carden. I'm reading along, enjoying myself. And then all of a sudden he opens the journal and it's Jude's name. She does. And I'm like, wait a second, he likes her.
Yes, because you're like, what is happening? They hate each other. And then it's I don't know, that trilogy is so good. I remember reading it when the books were coming out. I had to wait a year.
Yeah.
So listeners, the trilogy is already out. You
Yes.
don't have to wait.
No, it's so fun. And it's every page is a new surprise and she twists and turns this way and that. And I didn't see it coming. And I love that.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I love these recommendations. I love you gave us some adult paranormal rom-coms. And they're not even paranormal because there's some monster and stuff, otherworldly rom-coms. At the same time, they're perfect for a day with that. But give us fed us with a trilogy that you can just binge on it and have a take out something that's so juicy and so good. So Kelly, tell us where you can find you online.
You can find me. I'm most active on Instagram, but I am on TikTok too. And I'm also on Facebook. So those are the channels that I'm on the most.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.